Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Only Run Very Noob. Today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to bring you a deck tech of the Bravo list that I've been running for about a week now, and I've been really liking it. I think I'm going to continue playing a list very similar to this, or at least adopting um, a lot of the tech that this list sort of brought out. I think it's been a lot of fun, and I think it's quite good too. So we'll just start with the default equipment. We probably all know by now. We got a Nothos. We got Crown of Providence, Crater Fist, Tectonic Plating, and Iron Rot Legs. Not a ton to say about these. They're just sort of the best in slot. There's no other real reasonable glove choice. For helmet, you could go like Arcanite Skullcap, I guess, but Crown just offers so much. It offers CNC protection. It can fix your, like, if you're looking for a blue or have like an all red hand, something like that. It's very good for that. It also has some like synergy with heave as well. You could heave like a blue thunderquake and then crown it away and use like a huge hand. Iron Rot Legs is just the best we have right now. That's going to change very shortly, though. I'm very excited to try the new legs that are coming out at the end of the month. And then Tectonic Plating, very standard. The Seismic Surge helps the cost of a lot of attacks. And the only alternative is Tunic, which is actually kind of interesting and probably a lot better of an alternative than I'm thinking, just for like the main deck. But for now, I like tech plating. Like the block value is very good. Just solid piece of equipment. In the reds, I have two red choke slams. I'm not like 100% sold on choke slam. I think it could be buckling blow if we found room for buckle in the blue base. I think it could even be debilitate moving forward, as I think that's a little stronger into a lot of the decks. Chokeslam for me was mainly something to combat Briar, like they have a channel Mount Heroic turn. It's very good to chokeslam them. It costs them like a card from hand and 2 armor most of the time. But with no Briar, at some point after the next ban and restricted list, I think this slot could really be played with a little bit. I think Debilitate might be a little slept on. I think it would be good in a lot of the matchups. And it's like guaranteed value where the choke slam sort of has to line up with your opponent wanting to play pump spells. So yeah, I think I might actually try Debilitate soon. This is like one of the only red slots that I'm like super not sold on. But for now it's just choke slam. 3 Command and Conquer. This card's just very good. Destroying an arsenal is good, but not being able to be blocked by defense reactions is also incredibly strong. Most people are going to be sideboarding defense reactions in against Bravo, as that's one way to get around Dominate. And Command and Conquer just kind of says no to that. Also, we all know pummeling and Command and Conquer is very good as well. Because they can't respond with a defense react to the pummel, so they're just going to lose like a ton of value there. Crippling Crush is standard. This is like a really big attack. It's one of the reasons to play Bravo in the first place. I think that Crippling Crush is like a very overpowered, overrate attack. 11 for 7, not so much, but the 2 random discards is worth like 6 at least, and oftentimes it's worth even more because of the random clause. Sometimes they're just left with a card they can't even utilize. You definitely want to be trying to dominate Crippling Crush when they don't have like an arsenal, and you can steal a lot of games that way. I'll lump together Fate Foreseen and Sink Below. Just very efficient, a very easy way to get 4 value out of a card, which is kind of what you want to be doing. They even offer like deck manipulation. I really think that they were kind of These cards are actually like kind of overpowered, I think, in my eyes. Like, I don't think we're going to see replacements for these cards anytime soon. I don't think they're going to come out with like another 0 for 4 defense react that has like deck manipulation. They're just very, very solid cards that I think we're going to see played in all sort of different decks for as long as people are playing this game and they're legal to play. Sigil of Solace. This deck list is sort of like a fatiguey deck list for the most part. We'll get there when we get there. Sigil in a lot of builds is only for Icelander, as it's very strong against Icelander. But in this build, I actually run Sigil against a lot of different decks. It just gets you out of the critical life range. It's free value on the first turn of the game, turn 0. It allows you to bluff things like Pummel. And overall, it just keeps your life high enough so that you can enable like a fatigue plan. Spinal Crush, much like Crippling Crush, I don't think you're going to see a Bravo list without 3 Spinal Crush. The cards are just very good. It costs 5, so with a Surge it costs 4, which 4 plus 2 of the hero is 6, so off a 3-card hand you can dominate a Spinal, and if your opponent can't deal with it, in a lot of matchups that just like steals their entire turn, and it's worth just a ton of value. I wouldn't play a Bravo deck without Spinal Crush. And sort of same thing with Starstruck. It's not a red, but it's an honorary red. It takes a red slot even though it's a yellow. It's like the newest card in the list, and it's very good. The Unity trigger can be quite nice, allowing you, like if you have a Crippling Crush in Arsenal, you can block with a Starstruck and something else and throw Crippling Crush off the Surge and 2 blues. And even without an Arsenal, like blocking with Starstruck and another card allows you to pitch 1 blue to play Chokeslam, which can also be kind of nice. Much like Crippling Crush and Spinal Crush, I wouldn't leave home without it. I think it's a very good card, and I don't even think I side it out in any matchups anymore. I used to side it out against Icelander, but it's pretty good against Icelander just to pitch into the hammer and leave like 2 floating. The blue base is pretty standard. I think everyone's playing all of the poppers, so your Chokeslams, Buckling Blows, Cranial Crush, Debilitate, a lot of Disable, all the things that have 6 or more power you're playing. I think everyone's playing Terra Sunder, and I think everyone's playing Rouse the Ancients, so that basically leaves Showtime, Fiendel's Fighting Spirit, Stamp Authority, and Unmovable to talk about. Also down here in the sideboard I have 1 Warmonger Diplomacy. I'm not 100% sold on Fiendel's Fighting Spirit. I think it's pretty decent though. When you're doing the fatigue plan, oftentimes you'll have lower life than your opponent, and if you can ever fully block something with a Fighting Spirit and gain 1, it's like pretty decent. I've also noticed like against Azuri, it's pretty good to like block Spider's Bite and gain 1. And it almost blocks more than 1 in that situation, because if you have other attacks in your hand, now they're not affected by Spider Bite. It's a pretty good card to get out from under like Kodachi Lock, if that's an issue late in the game and you're trying to fatigue a Kodachi deck. Overall, it's been okay. It's also an attack for 5, which can enable Rouse with our attacks that have 8 power. So Thunderquake plus Fiendel's Fighting Spirit, 8 plus 5 is 13, which is the number that Rouse the Ancients is looking for. Overall, I think it's okay. If Chokeslam was Buckling Blow, I believe this would be the card I would turn into Buckle, but not 100% sure. A really weird thing is 3 Stamp Authority and only 1 Showtime. The reasoning for this is I think Stamp Authority is better against Lexi. And also you notice there's no Imposing Visage. I think just more of the auras that cost 3 is better on turn 0 than Visage, because Visage can be very awkward if you have like 2 reds and 2 blues. Not being able to play the Visage kind of sucks. With the auras, you can always just make a surge with one of the reds and then pitch the second blue to play your aura and get the value. Stamp Authority is also quite good because it lets you see the 5 cards you're going to have in your hand before you decide how to block, where Showtime draws the card at the beginning of your action phase, so sometimes you won't know exactly how to block with the cards, and you don't know if you're going to draw like a blue or a red, where Stamp Authority just gives you all the information up front. Searching up a Guardian attack is like, it can be pretty good, but we sacrifice a little bit of that flexibility to tutor and attack to just sort of get a little bit more information about the 5 cards we're going to have. Plus, it has another ability that stops on-hit effects from attack action cards, which is quite good in a lot of matchups. Lexi especially is a matchup you'll see a lot where it's good. 3 unmovables is pretty standard. You don't always see it, but I think it's good for the fatigue game plan. Lets you block 6 from Arsenal if you with only 1 card fatigued from your deck. It allows you to stop attack reactions. It allows you to stop dominate. And it's just overall kind of a solid card. It still costs 3, so it turns on a Nothos, which is nice. I definitely like it over something like Staunch Response, but I could see a world where I just don't play any blue defense reactions, potentially. But Bravo is a very common matchup, and I think you want to have these against Bravo. I think you want to have these against Azuri. And against Dory, they're like fine too. If they're on the Axe build, though, this isn't very good, so it's definitely a card you could think about cutting if you like something else more. And now we will get to the sideboard. 1 Warmonger's Diplomacy, just kind of keep decks honest, like against Azalea, against Viserai, and sometimes even against decks where the unmovables are bad, you can just like take out an unmovable and put in Warmonger's Diplomacy because it blocks 3 for 1 card. It also gives you it gives you 1 more blue when you're going above 60 cards. That's another thing I should talk about. The main deck of this list only has 37 blues, which is quite a bit lower than normal. But on the fatigue plan, when you're planning to just like block, you don't really need a ton of blues to be aggressive, right? Because you're just blocking with your cards and trying to set up a good second cycle to where then you can resolve your big attacks or throw a big attack in Arsenal and just wait until it lines up. Because you're not being super proactive, you're kind of just like blocking and being defensive. That's another reason why I like Stamp Authority over Showtime in this list, is because with more reds or non-blues, oftentimes you'll just have 2 reds and 2 blues in your opening hand, and that's, with Showtime, that's not as good because you're not really looking to tutor up a threat. You can just, because you already have 2 reds in hand, you're just going to Arsenal one of the reds anyway. Whereas Stamp Authority, you get to Arsenal one of the reds and have like a big 5-card hand that you can have more information about, like I talked about before. So Warmonger's Diplomacy I'm not like super high on, but I kind of like the one of just to sort of get them at random, and not sure what other high impact blue I could be playing in the sideboard. 2 Pummel, I know 3 Pummel is very common, but I think 2 Pummel is enough to sort of do what you want to do, and it's also kind of cheeky when you only run 2, because when people look through your graveyard and see 2 red Pummels, they're probably still going to try to play around the 3rd one, especially if you've been sinking things with Sink Below or opting to the bottom with Fate Foreseen. The only matchup I really miss having 3 Pummel is Icelander, to be honest, and you know, I think it's fine to only have 2 there as well. 3 Zealous Belting, fairly standard, very good attack. When you're fatiguing, it's just like super good. It's like 11 damage to belting into hammer, and it only costs you one card. It even leaves you with a surge. Staunch Response is a card I'm not incredibly high on. I don't know what else I would want it to be though. In some matchups, it's just super impactful, and it lets you fatigue like quite good because you can block for 10 and only use one card from deck. So in the mirror, that's very strong. It allows you to play 60 cards in the mirror and still sort of out fatigue Bravo decks that don't run it, even if they have like 64, 65 cards. Because getting 10 block value out of only one card from deck is like insane. That's normally like 3 cards worth of value, if not more. The really spicy one in the sideboard is the Down and Dirty. And I really love the Down and Dirty. I think as long as Codex of Frailty is a card that's seeing heavy play, I will be running one Down and Dirty in my Bravo lists. It's just very, very good against Codex of Frailty. When someone codexes you and you don't have an arsenal, but your one Down and Dirty is in the graveyard, you can get back a card that lets you block from arsenal, so you don't get blown out as bad. And it also acts as a popper in Dromai. So normally this would probably be like the third red Chokeslam or something, but the Down and Dirty is just like, does enough unique things where I think it's, I'm very surprised that I hadn't seen this card until recently. I think this card is very good in Bravo in the current meta. Blocking 2 can be so annoying sometimes, but being able to block from Arsenal is a very unexpected effect, and being able to get it back with Codex is just like it's been absolutely fantastic for me. Anyone who's doubtful on it, I would just recommend trying one of and playing it in your Codex matchups. I actually play it in a few more than just the Codex matchups, but playing it in your Codex matchups, in Dromai especially, you'll see it. You'll see it get like a lot of mileage, I think. The sideboard equipment, I normally like to bring AB3, but I've been testing AB2 and it's been like fine. I haven't really been getting blown out by blue blue Ice Vein from Icelander. I think they're starting to trim that card, if not remove it completely. And it lets you tempo Icelander a little bit better when you get to play the Crater Fist, which just kind of gains you 3 life for free against their attacks. I still got to test against Icelander more with only AB2, but it's honestly been fine for me. I think the only time you would ever miss it is against Blue Ice Vein, and Blue Ice Vein is sort of an inefficient card anyway. I think a lot of Icelanders don't even really like to play that card, especially if they expect their opponent might be a deck that has AB3. Tunic is in here just for Icelander as well. It allows you to pay for Frostbites. It turns Terra Sunder into a real card because you can play it off of 2 blues with a Tunic up, even through a Frostbite. It allows you to dominate a Crippling Crush through a Frostbite. And then it sort of just lets you do some like other things too when your draws aren't lining up well. Like it allows you to have a Zealous Belting turn still if you draw a Starstruck instead of 2 blues. It lets you Rouse the Ancients and still Arsenal like one of the cards you reveal. And sometimes it's just like generating like additional Arcane Barrier value. But I normally like to use it for dominating a Crippling or playing a Terra Sunder. And then Titan's Fist and Steelblade Buckler, kind of standard at this point. I play it into quite a few matchups with this build. I play it into Azalea, I play it into Katsu, I play it into Phi, I play it into Lexi. Lexi's the big one, why you would want to include it. But with a more fatiguey plan and trying to play slower, I think it's good into the ninjas too. So that's the deck. Let's get to some matchups here. So let's look at the mirror. So the cards I take out against the mirror is a little interesting. I think Zealous Belting's pretty good in the mirror, but I had to shave something to get down to 60. And maybe it's correct to just shave the choke slams and play like Zealous Belting and Command and Conquer, but I'm testing keeping the choke slams is just sort of a big attack. It fatigues them a little better, leaks a little bit more damage, I think. But I'm citing out the Spinal Crushes, the Sigils, Down and Dirty, 1 Command and Conquer, 1 Zealous Belting, and Warmonger's Diplomacy. Leaving us a bunch of defense reactions and Fate Foreseen, Sink Below, Staunch Response, Unmovable. All the big attacks, Crippling Crush, Starstruck. And it's been playing pretty well. With this setup, oftentimes Command and Conquer can be pretty bad because we're playing 12 defense reactions. So just kind of try to be mindful to not lose the Command and Conquer at certain spots. That's been like the one thing I've been trying to navigate. Try to line up your pummels with your Command and Conquers if you can. And just kind of play a value game and make them waste big attacks into your Staunch Response. Against Dromai, we're citing out all the defense reactions that we can while still remaining at 60. So that's Staunch, Sink, Fate, and 2 of the blue, or 1 of the blue unmovables. We have Warmonger's Diplomacy in over a movable, not necessarily because it is a good effect against them, although sometimes it can be quite effective, but it just lets you block for 3 with 1 card, and it doesn't get interrupted by like Thamai. Sometimes if they have Thamai on board and you don't want to clear it, you can't even play your unmovables, which can be kind of annoying. Sigil of Solace as a non-popper has been really impressing me. It's like a non-popper that you can get out of your deck with for no cost almost. You draw it and you never have to pitch it. You can just always play it. You don't have to worry about drawing it second cycle. The Down and Dirty can sometimes get them. Like if you can ever get this into Arsenal, it's like pretty funny. Like they'll Lost in Thought you and see 1 popper and take it, and then you get him with Down and Dirty or something. You're really gonna like surprise a lot of Dromais that way. But normally I don't try super hard to get in an Arsenal. I'll just like pop with it when I can. And we have the 2 pummels as well. Another popular matchup, Icelander. So we have the AB2 and the Tunic. Of course the Nothos. And the cards we're citing out is Down and Dirty, and then all the defense reactions that aren't blue. Of course we're keeping all the blues in as they let us like pitch through Frostbites. They let us play our big attacks. We're the aggressor in this matchup, so I also think that's an important reason to have all your blues, because this list is a little light on blues, so you want as many as you can have. And yeah, you see like all the aggressive cards and all the defense reactions in the sideboard. Against Lexi, we go up to 65, and we only side out the pummels and the Zealous Beltings. We're trying to play slow, but we're definitely trying to resolve a Crippling Crush at some point in the game. You can't just fatigue them by blocking. You have to fatigue them by resolving a Crippling Crush and hopefully having like a follow-up to it as well. You really want to get that 1-2 punch. The first Crippling Crush opens up your next turn to resolve like something. Sometimes that can mean in the pitch stack, but oftentimes you're just sort of hoping that you have a Crippling Crush in Arsenal and a Surge and like another threat in your hand so that you can Crippling Crush and then Arsenal your threat and hope to resolve it the next turn. But it's not always so easy against Lexi. They're very aggressive, they're very efficient, they threaten your life total a bunch. Down and Dirty is in because it's a Codex matchup, of course, and Staunch Response is in, but I don't like love it. It's okay though, it can block like a 1-drop arrow when they have a Rainrazor's turn, because their Heat Seeker and stuff comes in for 7. And it can be pretty nice to play Staunch Response when they give you like a Frostbite and attack for 7. That's like the ideal spot. Because you get rid of the Frostbite and you can still like play your Staunch. And those are mainly, I think, the meta decks. Against something like Katsu, where we want a lean 60. And we're citing out Staunch Response, Zealous Belting, Pummel, Down and Dirty, and the Warmonger's Diplomacy. Again, we're kind of trying to take it slow. We play the sigils so that we can get out from under Kodachi lock. The 0 for 4 defense reactions are very good. Um, they have a lot of 0 for 4s like Flusterfist or, Bonds of Ancestry or a Whelming Gust Wave after a Surging Strike. And then all of our threats are very good against them. Starstruck, Crippling Crush, Spinal Crush, Choke Slam are all good. Command and Conquer is good. They play a lot of 2 blocks and they don't have a lot of armor. So a lot of times Command and Conquer can make stuff pretty awkward for them. So yeah, that's the deck. Those are a few of the matchups that I think will be the most prevalent matchups. I've been having a lot of fun with this deck. I've really liked the Down and Dirty. And honestly, I've liked the Stamp Authority over the Showtimes and Visages as well. Um, 99% of the time, all those cards were just blocking anyway. But when you spike them on turn 1, I think Stamp gives you a little bit extra upside that I've been liking it. The cards I'm not entirely sold on are the red Choke Slams. I think those could be a few other things, and the blue Fyendal's Fighting Spirit. But they've been okay. So hopefully you like this deck tech. Hopefully I'll link it down below, and you can take it for a spin and see how fun it is to arsenal it down and dirty or get it back from Codex. Thanks for watching.